So many of us are grappling with the notion that this is an eventual life to live. Like, I have so many friends who say that we need to do the necessary stuff first and then we will live our life. But like Ruskin Bond says, it's not time that's passing by, it's you and I. That quotation, those two very simple lines stay with me. And very happy to share with you while it just happens here. There'll be people who call me up and say that we just come, leave our bags, and we would go. And then they come here. And then they settle down. And then they look at me and they ask me that, will you feed us food? We don't want to go anywhere. Because they enjoy the silence, they enjoy the whatever, the love that has brought this place together, it gets translated to them.
Melting Pot, a global podcast series hosted by Payal, connects guests who have inspiring stories and reaches out to a multicultural audience over 52 countries. Guests are diverse, such as celebrities, entrepreneurs, travelers, and many more who've had a turning point in their lives and moved over to a holistic lifestyle. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, social media. Hi everyone. Today I am in conversation with Saumya Kulshreshtha, a multifaceted powerhouse. And as she says in her TEDx event introduction, that she's a quintessential child where people ask the family what she does and the family's response is, well, she does something and that's for sure. So I think that's a very apt introduction. And thank you so much for joining me today, Saumya. So we, of course, need to know, as a quintessential child, what that, to me, the understanding of that is that you have a very diverse range of interests and also a very diverse range of talents. So can you tell us more about what these interests and, well, talent, I know that you're very talented, but I'd like to understand more about all your different interests and how you came about becoming the kind of person that you are today.
Wonderful. I think that question itself merits an hour at least of talking, because I'm 34 years of age and I believe I'm still discovering what is it that I'm truly born for. But a bunch of things I've understood about myself include the fact that I love the world of words. I love what is written. I love what can be read. I love what can be created. I love stories. I love poems. And I love talking. And whatever, if I marry all of these things, reading, writing, singing, talking, whatever can potentially come out of that is what I do. I like to believe I'm this person who wakes up each morning and who has a lot of very, very, very juvenile ideas in her head, but who also knows how to get those juvenile ideas out into the world. So I think I started off being as a student of literature, and then I've done a bit of marketing because for me that was a very creative field. And I used to design very, how do you put it, very shaitan campaigns, very nasty campaigns for a lot of our clients, which were cleverly out of the box, which had the potential to shock, but which also had the potential to carry a sort of larger meaning out towards the audience. There is a bit of compassion and empathy, I believe, all of our narratives can hold. So I started infusing that also into the world of marketing. Then a world I have explored very deeply is the world of poetry, because that is words and more words, but deeper meanings, the non-literal meanings, the indirect metaphorical meanings that all of us can uniquely construct for ourselves. I think that is what has kept me so deeply engaged with the world of poetry. Then I come from the world of teaching, because any and everything I learned, I also wanted to share and pass it on and create a sort of a system where a very humanized connection can be built, and where young minds could be enabled in the terms of becoming independent. And the tools that I was using to do this was, again, poetry, was a lot of mythology, was literature, was communication skills, was visualization skills, creative writing, and thereabouts. And I think the last thing that I have done for myself is that I've built a resort in Himachal Pradesh. I live in a giant, beautiful mud house. But I think the seeds of this business, this idea also were sown in because of stories. Because we grew up reading Ruskin Bond, who's this writer who lives in the hills and who's able to survive off his writing. So I always wanted a house in the mountains. And I think imagination and bravery were my biggest companions in order to make this thing happen as an individual. And now I think one of the other things that I'm doing, and I'm really happy with it, is creating and curating events. I do very interesting events all across the country, wherein a lot of dialogue, a lot of engagement can be built around what is written, what is read, what is performed, what is enacted. But the core idea is to build greater connections, larger compassion, and more empathy through whatever are the drivers. I think as a human being, that's what my calling has become now.
So, in your opinion, what are some of the misconceptions or stereotypes about individuals who actually pursue multiple interests or careers at the same time? And how do you navigate that?
Understood. So it's a question I've not really thought a lot about, I'll be honest. So whatever I will share with you, this is what I'm thinking right away. And the reason primarily for that, Payal, is that I'm a very joy-oriented person. Any kind of ruminations over what is wrong, what could have been, what am I not getting from the world gets me nowhere. But for someone like me, who has multiple interests and who likes doing multiple things and who likes having a lot of ownership over her life, one of the things that is constantly said about people like me is that we are flaky. We'll do this today, we'll do that tomorrow. And the reason I think why that happens is that because it's great for workplaces to put us in one mold and have his factory line reproduce our skill sets and our talents again and again. And whereas I think reading, I think singing, I think just reciting poetry infuses so much joy in me that I'm constantly on the path of exploration. And when you're on the path of exploration, you will like one tree one day, you will like one stream the other day, you would want to hike up the mountains, you would like to go to the beaches and carry all those contradictions and all those excitements within yourself. It is so beautiful that at the time, I actually feel sad about people who think that flakiness should be an adjective that should be associated with people who truly listen to the call of their heart. Yeah. And I think I was sharing this with someone else the other day that I am someone who's changed careers every 2 years. And it's not really a change as much as an add-on. I started with being this marketing person. Back in the day, I've also done UPSC ka tayari because that's the great Indian dream that
Sorry,
all
what
kids
is that? What is that?
Indian civil services.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's the grand Indian dream that even if you're decently good at your studies, you should become a civil servant because then life will be so good. So I've done that. I have been a trader. I used to trade currency derivatives. I've been a trader in the past. I've told you I've done marketing. I do performances. I do teaching. I do consultation for ethics. I do voiceovers. I travel now for business also. And I sing. And so people are constantly like, what do you do? And when I tell them that I do things that are coming to my heart, that's when they go poof. And hospitality, running a resort was nowhere on the anvil. But I was like, karke dekhte hain, let's try. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But till I'm alive, who's to stop me from trying? So that's number one, flakiness. But a very interesting thing that we often hear is that, oh my God, you're living the ideal life. So romanticizing our lives so much that the struggle becomes invisible. Sure, I'm very happy. Sure, it's great that I'm living in the mountains and I run this house and I meet with the who's who of the world. But the journey is only known to me. And I know that romanticization also comes from a point of insecurity. It is not coming from a point of empathy. It's coming from the point of, oh, you have it easy. Oh, you have a good life. You don't understand struggles of normal people. You don't understand the struggles of married people. I chose to be unmarried. And there was a certain amount of struggle associated therein also. But like I said earlier, struggles do define me, but my negative moments don't. All of that in good stride. So I think, yeah, those are the itsy-bitsy misconceptions. And the fact that, and I know where they stem from. In the corporate world or in the organized world, they stem from the fact that we can't be controlled. I remember in the last organized job, way back that I had, there was a wonderful teacher who walked in. She saw me sitting at a corporate desk. And she looked at me and she's like, Saumya, I never imagined I'd see you chained to a desk. And I was like, ma'am, but my mind is not. That is still time free. Yeah. And she was like, okay, so far so good. But they would always call me an outlier. And I believe I've worked with fantastic people who knew that I would leave. Still, they kept nurturing me. They kept nurturing me. They kept on giving me opportunities. And they still keep in touch with me. So all of my previous professions, all of my previous alignments, all of my previous work partnerships, they are alive till this date in whatever pockets I can service them, till it gives me joy, till it gives them satisfaction, until we are not co-creating toxicity in each other's lives. I think that's where I am.
So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about your homestay, because you mentioned at the start of our conversation that you live in a mud house, right? So what actually prompted you to, I know it's exploration and I'm starting to understand where you come from. So not in terms of physically where you come from, but what I mean is as a person, who you are. So what generated this curiosity for you to then say, okay, I'm going to do this whole migration of moving to the mountains, and I'm going to set up a mud house, which will eventually become a homestay. So, a little bit about how that actually came about, the journey of it, and
Sure.
also the challenges.
Absolutely. So I'll try to make it as compact as possible. About 4 years ago, the world faced something that united it more than ever before, and that is the COVID pandemic. And I was one of the few lucky people, Payal, who had everything working for her. I did not fall sick. I had all privileges and all amenities coming home. I had more jobs than usual because the world had shifted digital. So they needed people who could quickly adapt. And I was absolutely flexible. I was malleable. And I was teaching much more than before because teachers had still not understood, making full use of the digital platform. They were still resistant. And I was this person who said, hands up, okay, send everything to me. I will do whatever it takes. Again, for my sake, but also to help people out because there were schools which were struggling. I was working with this wonderful edtech company at that point of time, and they needed certain tutors. So, long story short, I had a lot going on for me, but I was trapped. And with this heart that always wants to constantly flutter away, and this body that enjoys movement, sitting down in one place, working and being in the same environment, something happened. And what that it was a very small thing, but my left hand lost a bit of mobility. And I didn't realize it. It just started developing pains. I've still not consulted a doctor for it, so I don't know what happened. But I'm guessing it was stress oriented and the kind of stress which is not very visible because everything is working for you. But the kind of stress which is inherent in our lifestyles, in the sense of, I remember it was, I think, March when the lockdown came about. And then I was in Delhi, so the hot summer months meant that you were sitting in AC 24/7. It's not a good way to live. Right? You're not moving your body. We do not have these ergonomic work desks at home. We sit on couches. There's not a lot of, we're sedentary. And to add to it, your mind and your body is not exposed to the elements because you're locked inside. So you're not even breathing in the correct air. Delhi air is nothing to boast of any which way. But at least in COVID, it had cleared up. And then I remember in September of 2020, Himachal opened its borders for travelers. And I had a wonderful friend who also is like my younger brother. He lives in where I live in a place called Bir in Kangla district of Himachal Pradesh. This place is known for its paragliding. And this boy said that, Didi, why don't you come spend some time with me? I have a home here. So you can be safe because we also have the travel anxiety in terms of sharing resources if you're staying in a hotel, how clean, not clean, sanitation. Homes were safer. So I came. And it was the first time I stayed outside of my house for this long, which was 12 days. While I'm not kidding you, my hand recovered. I became more agile. I was working with greater efficiency, same amount of work that I was doing in 12 to 16 hours back in Delhi. I was doing it in 4 to 6 hours. It's insane. And I was spending lesser. I was spending so much lesser here because we had to wake up, get our own grocery, do our own cooking. We weren't paying the amount of travel taxes, travel charges, transportation charges. And it was easy. The biggest thing was I could move my hand. Now I can move it. Earlier, I was not able to. And it just happened. It happened, I think, because we were sleeping on the floors, we were drinking better water, we had all this greenery, all the mountain air to consume. And so after those 12 days, I went back. Then I came back for 20 days. Then I went back. Then I came back for 30 days. And in that last phase, I decided that I will stay here. But I'm still a creature of comfort. I'm still a creature who likes people around. I'm a social being. And I have a lot of acceptance for
I
it.
second that. That's who I am as well, a complete social being. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So I decided what I'm going to do is I'm not going to find myself a house. I'm going to find something that I can convert into a homestay so that my friends can come and stay with me and guests can come and stay with me. And I did this very smartly. I give myself a lot of credit. I opened a small homestay first, which was almost zero investment. It was already a built property. I just had to do a little bit of decor, which was minimal spending. And I was able to recover all of it. And it was a budget homestay, which anyone could really come and stay in. And what I gained out of that experience, I think, aside from returns, aside from profit, was I realized how beautiful human connections can be and how surprising. Because there were friends of mine who I'd known for tens of years. And when then they came and stayed with me, and when I understood their entire cycle of being, I couldn't tolerate them. But there were people who came to stay with me who had no idea about who they are. And we just connected with our hearts so much that they always have a permanent place wherever I live. So, what does it take to truly connect with people when you're not meeting each other in transit? This is the term I started using, that in Delhi, when we go out and meet people, they're constantly meeting each other in transit because you're coming from somewhere, you have to go back somewhere. Here, we have to go nowhere.
Yeah.
And once I saw that little homestay work out, this is the second part of the story. I designed this place where I'm sitting. So this place is called Terra Poetica. It is located on the outskirts of the main beer town in a little village called Gunehar. And here I found a fantastic architect by the name of Frank Schlickman. And now I wanted to move out of that house, move into something that I had created. My creations are very precious, right? Whether you're knitting a sweater, whether you're writing one poem, or whether you're building something like this. And Frank understood my vision. He had a solution. And the best thing about him, Payal, was that he would only work with native people. He would work with labor that came from here. We weren't setting up any labor camps, calling migrants from outside, but really, genuinely, this man skilled the women mostly who belong to my village. And of course, there were men on the project too, but women are they're beautiful creatures. And I remember when this house was being built, and every time I would come, there was a distinct sound of laughter and music along with the construction work that would constantly be around. It was such a sonorous place, echoing with joy. And I genuinely think all of these ladies and Frank and everyone else, they just infuse so much of joy and laughter in this place, along with a lot of good intentions. That now it's been 10 months now that this place has opened up. And this sort of is not a homestay anymore as much as a luxury guest house. And I'm still understanding the technicalities and the legalities of all of these processes because lone woman in an alien place, it takes a bit of time to catch up. But I think I'm on a spree. I've hosted beautiful people. We do these amazing residencies. We have musical sessions inside the house. And I think it's a living house. It's organic. It is made out of mud and clay and all the kinds of materials that could be sourced from here. But it's absolutely modern in its design and its architecture, thanks to the wonderful person who decided that it's okay, Saumya, I will take up your project and let me give you something that you will enjoy living the rest of your life in.
What's next? Because obviously the exploration hasn't stopped and it's not going to. But do you have like any other ideas? I read in your bio that you've also done some literary festivals. And so if you could just talk a little bit about that. Are you continuing to do it? In which part of India is where you've been working at, and what else is should I say, brewing in Saumya's life at the moment?
So I think there are four things distinctly that I'm working on right now. Number one is about a bunch of months ago, a little kitten came into our lives. And before she came in, I absolutely thought I am not a pet person. I'm not an animal person at all. But this little one has come and taken over my life, and how. So I'm learning to settle down into a care regimen. So, and why am I mentioning this is because as a very independent brain person, as a very creative person, sometimes you just fly off and there is no rooting, there is no centering, and you just focus all your energies on yourself. Now I have someone to focus my energies on. This is not to say I'm a very good friend. I pass on a lot of my energies, but to have something to constantly care for, something that can't communicate to you. And it's just, you can just have a giving relationship. You can't really take anything off of there. So I think that's happening. That's new in life. Number two, the last 10 years, I have believed myself to be a writer, but I've not put that into action enough. So I am trying to build a discipline of writing and of creating access to my own thoughts, because I really think that's my logical next step. I always wanted to be a writer, but that want has not translated into any kind of action. And I've done a lot of writing. I've done commercial writing, report writing, article writing. I've also been a published author. I've done editing. I've done translations. I have written poems here and there in little silos. But as an act of discipline, I need to learn how to put myself, enough of flying. Now, can you just settle down? Can you take a desk and can you learn? Number three, like you very rightly said, a bunch of literary events. And it's not just literary events. The kind of events that I've done, they travel across music, poetry, crafts, literature, cinema, and culture, essentially everything.
More
So
like
what
a
I'm
multidisciplinary arts, right?
multidisciplinary arts, but in different explorations. So, for example, there is this beautiful festival based on Kabir's philosophy and the Indian mystic philosophy called the Mahindra Kabira, which happens at the banks of Benares. It's done by Teamwork Arts, and I'm really proud and privileged that they, in a very small capacity, I'm able to work with them and access Kabir's philosophy. So I'm not just taking expertise there, but they were the people who opened Kabir's philosophy for me. And 1 year, 1.5 years later, I'm still learning, I'm still studying. There is a Kabir book on my bedstead. Then there is another festival done by the same team called the Sacred Amritsar, which is an exploration of history, mystic poetry, and music in the city of Amritsar. And I recently, and they always push us to do something new. So aside from hosting and being a part of this event, I did a set on the famous Indian poet Amrita Pritam and her longtime partner Rose. And I did something like that for the first time, and it was received very well. But the credit goes to the organizers for trusting us so much. Similarly, there is this district in India, in Odisha, called Jajpur, where there is a craft summit that happens every year. And I've attended two of the first editions of it, and their vision is mind blowing. These are places I go to learn, I go to explore, I go to grab for myself. And then there is this entity very, very close to my heart, which is called the Dehradun Literature Festival. I started working there with them in 2023, and for 2024 as well, I'm continuing. The rest we'll see. But there it is a literary blast that we do. Over 3 days, we curate a number of sessions. We have close to 90 to 100 guest speakers. We do it primarily because Dehradun is regarded as the education capital of the country. And we want to take a lot of stimulus, lot of momentum towards the children, as well as the general population which is interested in the literary arts, as well as cinema, as well as pop culture. And so that is something that keeps me on my toes. And around that, we design a lot of experiences, a lot of events. And as a curator, I can tell you that the amount of research we have to do in this amount of time, because you have to be on top of everything. What's happening in politics? What's happening in pop culture? What's happening on the OTT platforms? What's happening in nonfiction publishing, spiritual publishing? What's happening in indie publishing? What's happening in international publications? You have to know it. What's happening at other festivals? You have to know all of that. And these things have to be on your tips. But oh my God, you should see the kind of mania that possesses me whenever I'm researching and I'm deciding what to do, what not to do. And I think because the intention is so clear, we just keep on finding lovely partners, companions who just decide to support everything that we're doing. And my aim is to have just a giant literary fair where all of us are celebrating and not hustling. I just want it to become a festival of such grand ideas that all of us can absorb, go back a little richer. So this was number 3. And the last thing, that is what's next, is going inward. I think I've done my fair amount of external exploration, and I have enough stimulus, I have enough data, I have enough experiences to now collate into understanding the harmony between what is here and what is outside. And that's where I'm invested. I'm invested into silences a lot more than before.
Thank you. You have a good week ahead, and I know you have a guest that you're going to be checking in soon. So, yeah, happy times. For more weekly conversations, do listen to Melting Pot on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Follow us on YouTube and on Instagram at Podcast Melting Pot. So until the next episode, this is Payal signing off.